Hey folks, Fernando doing our video for the Modern Survivalist, and this is going to be a question and answer video. As I always say, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll answer them as best as I can. Sometimes those questions, I'm not so sure about doing a dedicated video for those, so I have a few here that I'd like to answer. Before I go on, let me just say this. It would be cool to do one of these live videos where you actually get the questions from people that are watching the live feed. Let me know on the comments when would be a good day. I'm probably thinking on weekends it would be best, and what time would work best for you. Those of you guys that mention a specific time, that will be taken, of course, into consideration. So let's get to it. One of the things I have here is a question about the precious metal topic that I was covering in the previous video. How to actually use those precious metals. Well, of course, you would first have to buy it, and you have different options online or in brick and mortar stores where you live. Probably there's a shop nearby. Usually the prices are best online, at least that's been my experience, so that's where I poke around. You have a specific website selling precious metals, and you can look around on eBay, but the idea is basically to get those precious metals as cheap, as close to spot price as possible, whatever gives you a good deal, whatever company you end up trusting. And of course, when things get a little bit more ugly, and for whatever reason you have to dig into those savings that you have, it's time to sell. And at that point, you would, in some cases, you can sell it back to the same company that you bought those from. They give you a fairer price, or at least a better price than normally you would be getting from other people, but you have to shop around for selling as well. Maybe ask around or put some ads yourself. It's usually not that complicated. You just you could go into a dealer, a store, and sell it there. But again, the best approach would be to shop around and see who offers you a better price for your precious metals. Then I have a question here about fitness. I'm no fitness expert by any means. I just go by what the World Health Organization says, and the Canadian government has a nice little website in terms of the basic fitness for people, and both of those are pretty much aligned in terms of you need to do at least 3 times a week, 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise, and combine that with a certain amount of time of strength exercise as well. And basically that's what I do. I try to do a little bit of elliptic trainer. I wish I could tell you that I'm all day hiking and walking across mountains. That's not true. I do it every once in a while whenever the opportunity presents itself, when I feel like it, and I enjoy it, but it's not really a fitness. It's not a part of any fitness plan of mine. The truth is, I just use the elliptic trainer. And yes, I will say that when if a week goes by, or even a couple weeks go by and I'm not doing anything, I start feeling like crap. If I do it at least a couple times a week, I'm feeling okay, and I notice that the more I do it, the better I feel. So there may be weeks when I'm doing it like an hour every day, or sometimes I get a little bit more excited about it and do 2 hours in the middle of the night, that sort of thing. But yeah, I do feel better when I do it, sleep better, and just feel better in general. So yes, and you combine that with weightlifting, a little bit of exercise with weights. I did get a bit of a little injury a few weeks ago because I was lifting maybe a little bit too much. So it wasn't anything bad, but I just say, okay, I'm gonna be stepping down a little bit, going back to a little bit more normal weight for a while, and then take it step by step, slower. That's basically what you should be doing. If you have a better routine, then that's fantastic. Also, I got a question a while back about martial arts, and of course, if you can combine this with fitness in terms of maybe practicing martial arts a couple of times a week, 3 times a week or so, that will be a fantastic way of hitting different birds with the same stone. You would be working out, you would be doing a social activity, and you would be developing a skill that is actually useful. Now, in terms of martial arts for self-defense, this was also asked, and my advice would be to look around and see what's available in your area, because you will need a gym, an instructor. And of the martial arts that I know of that actually work for self-defense in terms of realistic self-defense, as in possible fights, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Judo. Those are the three ones that I think are best. You have your kickboxing, your Muay Thai. Yeah, I don't know if you have a good school or a good instructor nearby, you can definitely go for that. The key, honestly, it's boxing. Your old school Western boxing has been the cornerstone of punching people and not getting punched yourself. It's the fastest way to knock someone down. It's the fastest way to engage multiple attackers. Many times, this is stuff that I explained a little bit in my latest book. This idea especially during the 80s, with all the Karate Kid movies and Kung Fu movies and all that crap, it was always boxing. The fastest way to knock people down is punching them in the face with a well-placed blow. It's the fastest, especially engaging multiple attackers. If you've ever seen a boxer go to work on a group of people in a street fight, you just cover yourself, you just avoid getting punched, and you block those punches as they come in. Especially if you're fighting someone that is not trained in boxing, you will land on them rather easily. And it is the sport that allows you to engage multiple attackers probably best than anything else. Many of these 80s movies, martial arts, were not realistic by any means. They had very little actual sparring and fighting and combat, and that's what you have in boxing. In boxing you have a lot of that. At the same time, boxing is an extremely cruel and vicious sport, because it doesn't seem like it, but every single punch you're getting to the head, you're losing your brain a little bit more. It's accumulative, it's unavoidable, there's nothing you can do about it, because so as to learn those skills, you actually have to practice them in real life with someone trying to knock your head out and you doing the same in return. There's really no way around that. You're never going to be learning that unless you engage in that sort of activity. But it takes away a lot of you, and if you know anyone that has been boxing for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The speech is not the same, the brain damage, especially as years goes by, it's more and more apparent. So how much of a badass do you want to be? What is it that you're willing to give up to become one? What is the sweet spot where you're happy enough with it and you say, okay, this is me, this is where I want to be? And then you have, of course, other options. You have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's far less aggressive and far less damaging to your body, especially to your brain. And it is a very valid self-defense skill, because you learn how to fight, especially one-on-one, and how to control the other person. Again, if the other person is not familiar with that specific martial art, it's even easier. Now, the thing with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that you never want to end up in the floor in a real street fight. It may end up being very useful, for example, in a robbery, or someone comes at you with a knife or a gun, and you take control of them and you manage to use some of those skills. These are all very fluent, very varied, very different possible situations and outcomes, and it's all very different. So it may work perfectly for you in a real street fight, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. At the same time, you may end up in the floor with this guy because that's what you train and what you got used to doing. So you end up there, an accomplice, or a friend, someone comes, kicks you in the head, and it lights out for you, and that's it, you're done. The nice thing about boxing is that you stay on your feet and you move and you cover yourself and you throw those punches. It is by far the best way to engage different guys in a brawl. In boxing, you have brawler as a style of boxer. That's what you want to be in a street fight, or in a fight out there with a real opponent. Judo has this nice thing about, it's a very traditional martial art. It actually works very well. You can actually train and spar with other people without the same kind of brain damage you would be getting from boxing, of course. And there's ways of throwing people and not ending up in the floor yourself. That is also pretty much ideal. At the same time, it's not as fast as boxing. For boxing, you are the one that's delivering those punches. You have a ton of little YouTube videos where you see the guy that suddenly goes boom, boom, and he drops two guys just like nothing. That's a boxer. That's a guy that has sparred a little bit, knows what he's doing. And the thing about boxing is that in a very short period of time, you can get very good compared to those that don't know boxing. In just a few months, 6 months of boxing, sparring for real 3 times a week, yeah, you're gonna be kicking some ass when going against others in a fight if they don't know what they're doing in terms of boxing. So that is that's where it's at. My advice is, judo is a great thing, especially for kids. I want my kids to do judo, and I have a place nearby that we should be going for and trying out. But judo is a great way, Brazilian jiu-jitsu and boxing, but just be careful of that. Keep that in mind. In terms of another question I got, buying and renting, the advantages and disadvantages of each one. Well, of course, when you buy a property, you're not renting anymore. You're not, every single buck you're putting on the mortgage is going to an investment of yours. That has its own complications and potential problems if you don't know what you're doing and you're buying something that's beyond the price market and then it drops and you end up losing money, that sort of thing. But in general, of course, when you're buying, it's usually better than renting. At the same time, with renting, you have more flexibility. If something goes wrong, just pack your bags, you're gone, and you don't have any commitment there. You can rent another place just as easily in just a matter of days. When you buy something, you're kind of stuck with that, and putting a house in the market and getting it sold and not getting a hit while doing so, especially if things for whatever reason got complicated. Yes, the other thing is that with a property, you can develop it and improve the infrastructure and make it more self-reliant. If you bought a homestead or a farm or a place out in the sticks or even a house in the city, but you can do stuff that you're going to be taking advantage of years later. So all those are definitely good things. And of course, you can go about this as an investment. You have a property which you end up putting out for rent, and you use that money that you're getting from it and renting yourself somewhere else, and that gives you kind of the best of both worlds in terms of you have a place, it's creating income which you're using for living elsewhere. Eventually, if anything happens, you can go back to that same place, that sort of thing. So you have pros and cons on each one. Of course, whenever possible, if you know when you want to be staying, when you want to settle in a specific place, buying is a way to go. But it will depend on your moment of life you are in, especially if you're a younger person moving around a lot. Maybe not so much. Maybe a few years down the road, it's more of a thing that you should be going for. Always remember location, no matter if you're renting or buying. That's always the biggest thing, especially if you're buying. If you're buying, location is key in terms of value of the property above all, and in many ways in which how you're going to be using and enjoying that property. Guys, it's going to be all for now. Let me know about the live feed thing, if you think it's a good idea or not, and when would you like to do it. Guys, take care, have an awesome day. See you on our next video.